Yo, what up everybody, it's Tuna. Today's video, we're going to talk about the Torchlight Infinite preseason that is coming out on the 22nd of February. And all of the league starters that I think are going to be the best for this season. Even though we don't currently exactly know what the mechanic is going to be, we know what the best builds are because of a race event that happened a few weeks ago. So basically, I'm going to be listing here all of the best builds, linking all of the planners and stuff like that. So you guys can be prepared for the preseason and go in and start blasting basically. But let's get started with it. Now, this wouldn't be a starter video if we didn't talk about the Rehan train. This is a build that has been popularized by MilkyBBK, and I'm going to be linking to his guide in the description, of course. However, this build is just absolutely insane because you can just basically channel a Savage Charge, and as you see, everything around the map is basically going to blow up. As soon as it comes in contact with you, you're basically Savage Charging around the map. And as you do that, basically your burst is going to trigger about 10 times a second, and that burst is going to cause AoE damage, and that AoE damage then procs your explodes, and sort of like a chain reaction happens. It's just a really good fun build. It's something that I've played myself, and a lot of people kind of say that, oh, it caps out at a certain amount of damage. However, Don the Crown this season has actually proved to us that it does not. He pushed his variant up to 500 billion damage with an aura stacking variant, which I'll also be linking in the description. So that is basically what I consider to be the by far best build to start your Torchlight Infinite season and preseason as well. So just taking a quick look at the builders, you'll start off with Ground Shatter, and you'll just be looking for the Arminus Guillotine. Basically, this is going to take you all the way up to the point where you can actually start using Savage Charge once you unlock your hero trait, that's going to be causing the bursts. And then once we move on to endgame, you start seeing items like the Heavyware that gives you a bunch of damage and also some, defenses. Vortex Heart, of course, for more damage as well. And of course, the Praise for Injury Gloves, which you're going to be seeing in a lot of these builds, which basically causes enemies to explode if they're traumatized. Traumatized is the Torchlight Infinite's variant of Bleed. Basically, you're going to be causing physical damage and then causing trauma, and then that trauma is going to cause them to explode for 10% of their max life. And essentially causing that like really buttery smooth clear. Yeah, and then for the extra ultra endgame variant, which Don the Crown was running this season, which ran up to 500 billion damage, you're going to be using things like the Imperial Might and the Eternity, and scaling things with your Divinity Slates and doing some pretty insane stuff with aura stacking as well. So that's something that you can look forward to if you want to start this build. And again, it's one of the best builds I consider currently in the game by far, even for endgame as well, because it's just, the ease of use, as well as its ability to start from basically from scratch all the way to ultra endgame. It's just overall really satisfying build, to play in Torchlight Infinite. And basically what I kind of like see Torchlight Infinite as, this like auto bomber type of playstyle. So yeah, definitely one of the best builds in the game currently. All right, so the next build that I wanted to showcase is Extra's Spacetime Youga Mind Control build, which is something that you can take all the way from League Start into Ultra Endgame. And the footage that you're seeing on screen right now is basically the juiced out 8-4 farming titan that this can become. And Extra, thankfully, has, given us builders as well as a detailed sort of write-up on how you can actually get to this point and the gear that you need and how you can actually further specialize to get to this point of this, auto bomber insanity of a 8-4 farmer that you see. So the thing about this build is it's really nice because it has endless scaling, and it also has an insane amount of clear thanks to its wilt explosions. And, thank you to Extra for giving us a little bit of a detailed write-up, as well as Torchlight Infinite builders on the max roll to tell us all of the legendary gear, as well as all of the required gear that we need to get to this point. I will, of course, again, link all of these in the description. And yeah, and these builders will be able to take you all the way from the early game variant that you can see here, and the gear that you need for that, into the ultra endgame variant. And then also, of course, you can then further specialize your build into either mapping or bossing, depending on what you want to do. And of course, you can also fit the Eternity into this build. So I think this build is a great starter for the preseason, and it's one not to, not to sleep on, because I think wilt in this game is pretty damn insane, and is definitely something that I would consider to be one of the top damage types in Torchlight Infinite. The next build that I want to showcase is the Einherjar Bing, which is basically going to be a totem type of build played on Bing, which is the Trapper Ascendancy in Torchlight Infinite. So essentially what you're going to be playing is, you're placing down your Einherjars, and they will be raining down damage on your maps, basically. And we can take this all the way from very early game into ultra end game, and basically we'll have a lot of single target damage as well as a pretty decent amount of clear. In Torchlight Infinite, playing this kind of like totem style playstyle is pretty smooth because they have really instant type of damage / auto targeting. Essentially, you'll just be placing them down as you move around your beacons, and as you do that, they will be instantly triggering and shooting down damage on your enemies. So the main downside of these builds usually is that they have kind of like delayed damage. However, in Torchlight Infinite, this is not the case, as everything is going to be instant. And since you can actually start this, we have a very handy max roll builder that you can follow, everything that you need to know, and the basic prerequisites to getting this build up and running, of course. And then it can be scaled into endgame as well, or re-rolled into any sort of big build that you plan to play. However, this one was one of the best builds in the race, so it's definitely something that I consider to be, a viable and a very strong starter for the preseason. So as we're on the topic of Einherjar builds / totem builds, this is an Erika build which specializes in projectile type Einherjars called Ghostblade Einherjars. Basically, you're going to be playing this on the cat, Erika, and she's going to be dishing out a ton of damage as well as getting access to explosions as well, thanks to the gloves that we previously mentioned. And it's a very strong build to start the season with. You can reach high levels of damage pretty damn fast, and thanks to its explosions, you're able to clear up to deep space T8. Because of those explosions, it's just going to make your map clear so much smoother. Single target, of course, will be easily handled, as this is, this class has a crazy amount of access to that. And in general, it also does have a ton of speed, as it specializes as well in, getting a ton of movement speed. And as we currently know, the preseason is going to be, it's going to have a theme of movement speed and fast farming. So I think, as we're on that theme, Erika is going to fit very well within that niche. So yeah, I think starting this build is going to be very good. And if you then want to, respec to anything that Erika is good at, for example, like deck stacking or that kind of stuff, you can, right? So we are going to be, proposing you this planner for max roll, and you can follow it on your league starter. And then you can always look at the hero ranking and hero ladder to see what people are up to, maybe if there's like a special build that pops up on Erika. But yeah, I think this is definitely a great starter and something that can set you forward into like, deep maps, and then you can like re-roll from there onto anything that you'd like to play with Erika. All right, so last but not least, we all know that the new Gemma is actually completely broken. I've previously released a video on an endgame variant of the Terra Gemma build, which you can actually check out on my channel. However, this is going to be sort of more a league start variant of that, which is still going to be utilizing, Terra. And what it does is it just basically walks around and everything explodes around you as you're triggering this Terra skill, which then causes enemies to freeze, and those frozen enemies are then going to explode thanks to your hero traits. And of course, you can see all the gear that is going to be very useful to you as you're starting. We're going to be showing you here on the max roll planner. And of course, again, if you wanted to have an endgame variant of this build, you can check out the video that I have released maybe about a couple weeks ago, and see what that looks like in ultra endgame, with crazy gear and all that kind of stuff. But by far, I think this is one of the strongest endgame builds in the game currently. So finding a way to bridge the early game into the end game is the challenge here. And of course, this planner is going to allow you to do that. All the gear that you need to get to excel with this build is definitely pretty cheap and available early on. So it's not a problem at all. And then once you want to pivot to the endgame variant, you can start saving up for those pieces and hopefully, pop off in that way. But yeah, I think this is definitely one of the strongest builds in the game currently, and I think you should experience it before it's potentially nerfed the next season, but we never know. But that about sums up all of the best starters in Torchlight Infinite in the SS3 season, and I also think that, these are going to be setting you on a very good foot. You're going to be starting the season very well if you choose any of these builds. So yeah, those are my top starters and the top choices for this preseason, and I hope you guys have found this video helpful. And if you have, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I really hope to see you guys in the preseason, and best of luck to everybody. 07.